here at Emily Miller's book party in Washington, D.C. with our friend Katie Pavlich of, all right, so Fox News, Town Hall. Is there anything else coming up or in the car?
That's about it for now.
Of course, the author of your own book on Fast and Furious. Having written a book yourself, what is this day like? What was it like for you, and what do you think it's like for Emily?
It's an amazing day. I'm so happy for Emily. Producing a book is a huge accomplishment. It's a lot harder than people probably think it is, and I'm just really happy that she did it on this topic. It's totally relevant. I respect her for having the patience to go through the DC system to get a gun. I live in Virginia I don't have enough patience to deal with that. But what's great about her story is that she started this by simply, writing about this and writing about her experience with the Washington Times. And it was never supposed to be a book, but it turned into that because it was so precious and so important for people to know how people are really impending on our rights and also how difficult it is for people to defend themselves here in the District of Columbia. So I'm really happy for her. I know it's been a huge success already. I know that a lot of people throughout the industry are talking about it. She's been on Piers Morgan, who talked about it. She's done a lot of work on MSNBC. So it's just major success. Very happy for her. Great accomplishment.
So your book on Fast and Furious, other than you and us and the conservative-leaning media, it's a dead story to most people. And unfortunately, it's not a dead story because they're still going on. What is the latest?
It's a phony scandal, according to the President of the United States. The latest is that we're still caught up in the court system, which is exactly where the Justice Department wants it, which means we don't have access to documents, we don't have access to any new information. The Brian Terry's family is still waiting for answers. They still feel like they got robbed not only of their son's life, but also of any closure on this topic. So I'm glad you asked. Actually, the Brian Terry Foundation is having a dinner in Tucson, Arizona on September, I believe, 28th, and I will be there helping to MC. So people can either go to that if you're in Arizona in Tucson, or you can donate at honorbrianterry.com. But at this point, we're kind of in a stalemate because Eric Holder's still in contempt of Congress, I'd like to remind people, but unfortunately we still don't have a whole lot of answers.
So, you liken it to what's going on with Benghazi, and just recently John Kerry told Congress, sorry, can't make the witnesses available to you. And there's so many analogies between, all these scandals are analogous in some way or another. But when you look at the year anniversary of Benghazi that just passed, in some of the tragic similarities, what do you see?
Well, you see a massive cover-up, and that's what this administration is doing. The playbook between Fast and Furious and Benghazi are the exact same thing. Deny that it happened, blame it on other people, lie about what happened, and then when the truth comes out about what happened, which we don't have all the details about, but we do know at least some of the people who were responsible, intimidate whistleblowers, intimidate people who were there. One of the head guys who testified, who was on the ground in Libya, not in Benghazi, but in Tripoli at the time when it happened, has said he testified before Congress, talked about how Hillary Clinton knew this was an attack within hours of it happening. Not a week later, not 2 weeks later, within hours he was on the phone with her telling her this was a terrorist attack. And yet he's being punished now, and his family is feeling threatened because he simply came out to talk about what happened that night. And then you do have people like Secretary Kerry, who took over for Hillary Clinton, who said, what difference does it make that 4 Americans died and that we don't have any answers, saying he's just not going to provide witnesses to the Oversight Committee so that they can do their job and give the families who lost their sons there that night some closure. It's really an atrocity, and it's disgusting in my opinion, but we're not getting anywhere with them. So at least we have good people in Congress like Darrell Issa, and we have at least some good reporters who are willing to get to the bottom of it.
We recently returned from Colorado, where, of course, the recalls were successful. We were there, but I was watching your Twitter feed, and you were just as on it. You were counting down to the polls close. When you saw, the conventional wisdom was that Morse was in trouble, that Haroun was okay. Right. But when you saw that both were recalled, what were your first thoughts?
It's hard to keep my happiness contained. I was fist pumping by myself at 12:30 a.m. on the East Coast. Such a good victory. I mean, the reason it's so important, obviously, is because big advocate for the Second Amendment, but this was an issue that went across all political spectrums, Democrats, Republicans, independents. People do not like it when you blame them for the bad actions of other people. These were deep blue districts, and we won. And what I love is that what a big pushback it was on Mayor Bloomberg. Stay out of our business. We don't need you coming into our communities telling us how we should or should not behave. Go home, take your money elsewhere. And we won. And I think that it's a good message to send across the country as we go into the national elections for 2014.
But Katie, you were totally wrong, because I was told it was due to voter suppression.
Oh, yes.
So
Yeah.
I think you should take back your statement.
Well, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, the DNC chairwoman, of course, said that the reason that Colorado's 2 senators were recalled was obviously because we were suppressing votes, even though Revealing Politics actually showed people on her side of the aisle allegedly assaulting people outside of the polls. That's always their argument. They could never, actually admit that trampling on people's Second Amendment rights causes problems electorally. We won fair and square. And if the only argument she can come up with is, oh, people are bothering me on Twitter because they said some stupid things about how this is all about voter suppression, when, the votes added up, they got recalled, and Second Amendment won.
Last question for you. There was a story about the UNC GOP, and they wanted to bring you down, but the people in charge of it said you and Ann McElhenney were not intellectual enough, or whatever insults they wanted to throw your way. How did they fight back? Tell the rest of the story.
Well, basically the short version is the UNC College Republicans went to their student government and advocated for funds, like every other group on college campuses do, to bring speakers to campus. They wanted myself and they wanted Ann McElhenney to come. I go around the country to talk about firearms, Second Amendment, why women should be arming themselves, why universities put students into vulnerable situations, but not allowing students to be armed. And so the student government slashed their budget by $5,000, said that I was not intellectual enough, said Ann McElhenney wasn't intellectual enough, that we weren't worthy of the amount of money we were asking for to travel and come talk to these students at UNC. And they gave the money that they originally asked for to the anarchists, which is ironic considering why would anarchists be getting money from the student government, right, and to the feminists, which is also a little ironic considering Ann and I are both female. They said that, Ann wasn't qualified to talk about climate change and fracking, when, in my opinion, she's much more qualified than many of the master's degree students, the teaching assistants at any university, to talk about environmental issues. So we waged our own little war. I think the Daily Caller put it best when their headline came out. They said, "Lost the battle, won the war." We started a crowdfunding site on Indiegogo and raised enough money in 2 hours, and we're still going to go. So October 28th, if you're in North Carolina, please come out and see us at Chapel Hill. Ann and I are going to be doing a joint event together, all about free speech and whatever else we feel like coming up with. So it was a great win for us too.